on, I don't know, Hampstead Heath or somewhere, and go, here's the flag, there's 300 of us, this is definitely England, we all recognise it, we're sovereign people. But surely that's already established, that England exists, and that there is, yes, the United Kingdom business, and there's the Houses of Parliament business, and there's maybe England UK business, but 300 people, surely the England already exists. It must have existed back in the days of Runnymede and things like that. That's where I'm a bit confused.
Of course.
Yeah.
So of course, the nation of Ireland has existed for hundreds of thousands of years, right?
Yeah.
And the people of Ireland. But there is a process like Romney Stewart did, right?
Yeah.
Is checking, we'll say, for Australia. Is that recognized under law, or the people that we elect as government? How are they operating, right? So it turns out they were operating only in a corporation, and there was no proper lawful recognition of the territory of Terra Australis, right? So what we're doing, and that's where Edward Fitzgerald's book, Smoke and Mirrors, came from,
Right.
was part of the process that when I went over to Trafalgar, I've been working with people who know the law in Britain and also with the veterans. And we are going through with many people there a process for seeing, is England recognized under the law? And
How do you do that? Is there a book that says, where is it, where it would say?
So there's various elements. Is the nation recognized under international law, and is the nation recognized in the Universal Postal Union or within the postal system?
Right. And if it isn't, that's when you would claim it. Is that what you're saying?
And if it isn't, then it is like, in a way, it's reclaiming it, right? Because it turns out the example of Australia is very good, is that when the bankers were going around, we'll say in the boats, as part of the various elements of the City of London, the Vatican, Venice, and Washington, that if there was men and women on the land, in honor in a way, they did not claim it. So the example of the Commonwealth of Australia is they picked 3 islands, Norfolk Island and Christmas Island and another island, and they're only about the size of 2 tennis courts.
Well.
And that was what they, in their international system, that they registered as the Commonwealth of Australia.
I see.
And citizens, as corporations and persons, have the right to reside in the Commonwealth of Australia, but only on those little islands. And it turns out that the nation of Australia was not really recognized properly in their system. Now, the beauty of Ireland is that the Irish Republican Brotherhood did all the work for us, recognizing this in the nation of the entire island of Éire. And the IRB was established in 1858, but they actually proclaimed the nation of Éire and the Republic of Ireland in law in Easter 1916. And they established the flag, which is held by the Irish Republican Brotherhood, the one that we use now, green, white, and orange. And the IRB essentially claimed the sovereignty in trust for the people of Ireland. And then they had an election in 1918 that was lawful. There was 75%, a landslide election for the Irish Republican Brotherhood, Sinn Féin. And then they had the first parliament in 1919. And what was really important is that, coming from the history of Fanacht's Lína Féine in Ireland and Brehon law, they established the Dáil Éireann courts, the lawful courts of Ireland, that worked very well until then the armed forces of the British came in a few years later. But it turns out that the IRB still exists, and I'm very honoured to be working with the President, Billy Maguire, and we have now 12 people in the Supreme Council, and John Flanagan. And essentially the IRB is just holding the sovereignty for the people of the nation. It's not a political party, it's just a holder of the sovereign seal and the flag and the lawful recognition under international law that the nation of Ireland belongs to the people of Ireland. And then the process is that they are, and we are claiming the right to have lawful trial by jury sitting in the people resting in the sovereignty of the nation that's recognized in international law. So that's what we're doing now with many people in England. And I'm going to be involved in April, just 2023, in a few weeks, in training jurors in the law across Britain and Ireland. We're working together, and also to get the nations recognized, to confirm the nations are recognized under international law, to then set up a system of trial by jury that will be lawful, and then challenge individual men and women who are, first of all, legislation like the 15-minute cities or the COVID-19 Act, for whether the men or women that are implementing that, is that lawful, and is the piece of paper actually lawful, or does it infringe on people's right to life or freedom of travel? And whoever does that, it's the crime of malfeasance for them, 20 years in prison in a properly constituted trial by jury with jurors who know.
Oh, she's just disappeared. She's just disappeared, ladies and gentlemen. Dolores. Sorry about that. Suddenly the internet just suddenly disappeared. So I hope that you've understood all that. We may just get her back for the last bit. So here she comes. I think she's coming back. Here we go. Sorry about that. We lost you then for a second.
No worries. Back again.
Brilliant. So this is a long process, but it sounds more complicated than it actually is, from what I'm trying to sort of get my head around it. Because when you've done that, when you've claimed your nation, and you've set up your trial by jury, and you've been going out training jurors, and then asking those people in those professions, are they men and women, or are they legal fictions just carrying out stuff for the legalese? Will that, I mean, the final thing is, will that get rid of this deception and this fake system altogether, so that we as a people can live in peace once more without the fear of penalty and infringement on our shoulders all the time?
So the answer is yes. And in a way, it's people that I'm working with, that what we're trying to do is set up the trial by jury mechanism lawfully, right? Not an ad hoc trial by jury process. And then, as William Keats has rightly said, and Edward Fitzgerald, including on excellent videos, is that one example can nullify all of the legislation. So if people will say, we know in Canterbury and in Oxford, they are trying to bring in these 20-minute cities or zones. Now, say if the man who's the head of the council, or the woman in Oxford, will say, we'll call her Bernadette, right? So what someone who is affected, say if you're there and you're a 70-year-old and your sister lives 30 minutes away, and that they, after 200 days, so you're on day 210, you visited your sister, and they want to now take money from you.
Yes.
That we'll say the lady who's affected, Anne can actually write to Bernadette and say, you are infringing on my right to travel. I do not have to pay, and it actually is a crime for you to infringe on my lawful right to travel. And then she can then constitute, or ask in the local community, really a trial by jury can be held in a public building. And then you put someone on notice, right? And you give them maybe more than 4 weeks to prepare. And then the evidence would be presented as if someone is trying to force someone to pay money in order to travel and visit a loved one or a family member. The trial by jury would see, is this, the 15-minute zones or the so-called legislation, is that infringing? But that one example would then enshrine the right to travel for everybody immediately and nullify the legislation.
Right. So let me just scroll back there, because I think you said something very important that may just have gone over our heads or whatever. And that is the fact that you said if this woman, this elderly woman, feels that she's had her lawful rights infringed, that she can't travel, you just said that you could hold the court in the town hall, in a
Yeah.
public building. So it's not the court. We're not talking. So are you right in saying it's not that you've gone down the court system and you've said to the court, I want to have a trial and blah blah blah. You just holding it. You're getting 12 just men and women. You've made a public declaration. There is this trial going to take place. You've put notice on the woman from the council. Is that what you mean?
Yes, exactly. So
this is within the community are doing this, not the legal system, not the council. There's no money transactioning other than you might just hire the building for the purpose. You're just saying the people. I mean, it's not a what would you call it, a witch hunt or anything, but it is a publicly organised event by the public, not by the so-called authority. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, Richard. So the thing about I'm just so excited by that, but I think that's what people may have missed from all the other stuff, is that actually you're saying that it's the people who instigate these things, not the current system. Absolutely. But
Okay.
the thing is, you have to frame it in people and a nation, is that what we don't want. And I would object to people, accusing people or arresting people, because every man and woman is innocent and is presumed innocent.
Mm-hmm. And yes, so even
unless
the woman
they are proven guilty, right? But also, so what you have to do is a process of law, which they had for hundreds of years, right?
Yes.
So the law and trial by jury has to happen in a public place, and people in the law, most of the law, when it's almost like when you're sovereign and lawful, the vast majority of the lawful transactions happen between, we'll say, Josephine, Dolores and Richard, that say if we're both farmers and your cattle come into my farm, I would then write to you, and I would write a notice, just that's what it's called, what we write in the law, to put you on notice that your animals are in my farm. Now, the vast majority of time you would act in honor, and you would write back and say, I am very sorry, I didn't notice, I will mend the fence. And you would both act in honor, and if I thought I needed compensation, you would compensate me, right? So that would be the process of the elderly lady would have to put someone and write a notice.
Yes.
Now, and if they did not lawfully respond, right, as the lawful man or woman, then you could put a notice for delinquency, and you would give someone maybe a series of 7 days. So the elderly woman would write to the woman that we pay in the council, and over a 2-month process. And then if the woman in the council, Bernadette, did not say, yes, I am infringing, or exchange the legislation or propose to take away the barriers, then that paperwork, the lady would then write to Bernadette and say, I'm going to give you further 2 weeks or 28 days notice to say that in my community, there is a trial by jury process that is embedded and recognized in, and it's all free, right?
Right. Yes.
Okay?
So
the doers are free, and then everybody has to step up to defend their rights, right? So then the elderly lady would then present herself, would provide the evidence that she's been fined, she doesn't want to pay it, she's written and acted in honor, and then the accused woman,
yes,
I can't remember what I called her now. Whatever, we'll call her Anne. Has she acted lawfully, where she is liable in her private and personal capacity for her actions?
Which she wouldn't have done, because she's been, I mean, in that case, if she's the one that said, oh no, we put cameras in and we're going to charge everybody who goes over 200, whatever the thing is, she wouldn't have done. And so, it's down to the jury to make the decision.
Yes, but it's more important, right? And this is what William Keats was saying and Edward Fitzgerald is. The power of a lawful trial by jury is because every man and woman, embodies everybody else. That if that elderly woman's right to travel is infringed, then all of the 20-minute cities in England and in the world, and all of their United Nations Agenda 21 or all of their acts infringing on people's rights are immediately nullified. And then Bernadette is also liable in law for the crime of malfeasance,
Yes.
which is she knew or should have known her actions would cause or infringe someone's inalienable right to travel. And that is up to lifetime in prison in England today for
Yes.
Bernadette. And if Bernadette is liable, then everyone in all the other councils are liable. And then the trial by jury could give them the opportunity to remove all of the restrictions within 7 days. And also will say if something similar was done for COVID-19, that everybody whose reputation or accusations would be nullified. But also the individuals will say, like Catherine Pearce in Ireland, they would have to compensate from their indemnity insurance for the reputational damage and the time and the harm. But then if it was true that Catherine, will say in Ireland, knew or should have known that trying to put me in prison for traveling to give scientific and health information, I can then accuse her of infringing on my right to travel and ruining my reputation, and she could then be put on trial for malfeasance.
So So the thing that has eluded me, and I think has eluded everybody, having spoken to William Keat and other people who've been talking on similar things, is this business about you're bypassing what we think of as the official route to court by effectively you're going through the process as you've just described, but the people are holding the court in their town hall or a public building, wherever it is. They are putting notice that it's happening, and they've chosen the 12 just men, and they are calling the witnesses and the accused, and they are holding the court, and they are making the judgment in their nation under their flag, and you're basically taking back control of your own country, your own nation, your own responsibility, your own community. I think that's what people have suddenly not realised, that we're thinking that you have to go through these recognised channels which cost a fortune and will bleed us dry, and that's why people don't. When actually what you're saying is, in law, we can do it ourselves. We can get ourselves organised very easily and put an end to the 15-minute cities if we find that they are against the law, if they're not lawful. We can get rid of all these things from Agenda 21, the COVID harms that have happened. We can get all that by doing it ourselves in our nation. I mean, I think that's what people...
exactly right. So the thing is, this law is the same now as it has been for thousands of years. And I think part of the deception in the education system is that people have been miseducated, that people thousands of years ago were not sophisticated and not very highly informed about the law. So just a quick one, the name of Ireland, Eru, comes from the word sovereign. And the name of the ancient system of law, which is over 100,000 years old in Ireland, was called Rina Féine or Fenachtas, and that is the law of the free, right? Now, so that men and women had an absolute understanding of sovereignty and freedom, and that no man or woman can actually infringe on those freedoms. And that's where things like a writ in law, like a writ of quo warranto, if someone in ancient times was trying to prevent you from traveling, everybody would verbally issue a writ of quo warranto and say, on what authority? And you cannot infringe on anybody's inalienable rights. But maybe if I just, before we end, Richard, I just have one little slide there.
Oh, yes. Let me
to show it, and maybe just to tell people that in the law, you can have a precedence case, right?
Yes.
So just one example is very important. And if there's any element of fraud, there is no time limit in the law. So this is just an example that in January 2023, I had people dressed up as police coming to my home, knocking, and then on the 22nd of January, they put this new case into my door, which was written in legalese and no autograph. And this case is 2021 65354. But I'm being accused of a criminal offence to put me in prison for 6 months. And this was for when I was coming back to my home after giving health information in Trafalgar Square, right, in England.
Right. Yes.
So this is an example that I have written now to my accusers. One of them is the Director of Public Prosecution. And I'd be very happy if you call this Shining a Light, Richard, you know, this episode, and the case number 2021, then it's 65354, because I have written to them to a notice to stay the criminal proceedings in order to refer this travel in 2020, September 2020, to the High Court and Supreme Court in Ireland, because they are saying to put me in prison for traveling to my home country. And I'm saying that this accusation from Catherine Pearce, the Director for Public Prosecution, is infringing on my inalienable right to travel. Now, my daughter was a child at the time, and I have an inalienable right to travel in the law, but England and Ireland have a common travel arrangement, and both nations were allegedly our states were in the EU, and also we had referendum in Ireland around the X case. So this case has been postponed again to the 5th of May 2023, and I would like people in a way to come with me on the journey, because of whether it is a criminal offence for me to give health information in 2020. If it is, then I will go to prison. And this is, I think, the 7th time that Catherine Pearce has tried to put me in prison for giving health information, which was my lawful duty. So it's a bit like the way Edward Fitzgerald was saying, either was say the monarch and the oath is lawful or it's not. You can't have it both. Either they put me in prison, because of course that would also deter other doctors and scientists or physicians and scientists from giving health information. So I will be putting up information about this on lawversuslegal.com. And if anyone wants to support me, they can email me at connect@custodian.com or follow me on Telegram, Richard.
I'll put, if you give me those links, I'll put them in the description of the video, and people can check that out. I think this is absolutely fascinating. For me, the core thing is that it's very much, and this has been my sort of journey since talking about this, is the fact how much we can take back the responsibility and the control for our lives by implementing what is law, and recognizing the deception and doing something about it. So this whole business that we can actually go and set up a court ourselves and not rely on everybody. I think that's what will blow people's mind, because we're so conditioned that we have to go down this other road. And those people who've got 15-minute cities or cases, and they'll think, blimey, how do we do it? And I'm sure you'll be inundated with questions.
Well, and just to say that I'm working with Mixdot and about 20 of the key people, and we are, Mixdot developed Guardians 300, and with all of the trainers for free, voluntary, they trained over 130,000 people in one-day courses in 2021. And so I'm very honoured to be working with the Veteran Network in England, and I'm with Mixdot, and many of them, we are going to be training people to train jurors. And then around England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland over the next year, we will be looking for communities who want to be trained in order to know how to put on trial by jury. And just exactly as you say, part of living in a lawful community will be for people to volunteer to be jurors, and for upstanding members of the nation to take on the role as justices, which are not paid. They are just upstanding members. And then it will be a process of lawful trial by jury for people to get accountability and to resolve matters. But initially we're going to do it around nullifying legislation potentially, or the trial by jury would ask, is a particular document or legislation lawful or not?
Yes.
And we're hoping that that will happen, maybe the first one around the 15 or 20 minute cities in 2024. And people can email me if they're interested at connect@custodian.com. And we are looking for communities who want to have people trained. We'll say maybe 20, 30 people.
Yeah, I think people are going to, I mean, I can imagine that there'll be a lot of people interested, but also I imagine there's going to be quite a bit of resistance as this movement takes on, because what is lawful and free is going to upset the other people who are making an awful lot of money out of this and carrying on with the deception.
And, I think that's why, they have had, not just to me, but against many nurses and physicians and people standing up, is that they are making false accusations against us.
Yes.
And we have, the people dressed up as police and, the Supreme Court in Ireland are allowing us to be charged with criminal offences for travelling and issuing warrants. So if people actually do a still of the slide that I gave you, the case in the criminal court was just a few days ago, on the 5th of April, 2 days ago, that if they look, there was 25 people we pay as police, all in the courts.
All in the court.
Under the name of the accused was Michael Collins, who was a former president of the Irish Republican Brotherhood and is very honoured and an historical figure in Ireland. And so there's 25 people there we pay as police constables in the court. Now, if it wasn't postponed, they would have been there, and there is allegedly a warrant out for my arrest for travelling on another occasion. So that would have been, I think, to intimidate me from going into the courts in order to take a precedence case. So that's, there is huge resistance. And maybe the last thing I'll say is that I did a little video in March of 2021 when there was checkpoints in Ireland preventing people to go to the St. Patrick's Day parade on the 17th of March 2021. And in that 10-minute video, I said anyone dressed up as police is liable for the crime of malfeasance, and that I would, if people videoed, I would take on 12 examples of those men and women. And the next day, all the checkpoints were gone in Ireland, never to appear again.
Wow.
Because once you turn it back on these individual people, they know it's up to lifetime in prison for them.
Right.
And that is, we are, it's an amazing time to be alive, because all of the generations before us, they would not have access to this information, and they would only have been in touch with one physician and one local justice and one local maybe teacher. But there's no way they would have been able to piece together the kind of deception that has gone on. So that's why I'm really honoured to be on with you, Richard, and delighted to be given the opportunity to explain it.
Well, it's been fantastic having you on, Dolores. Thank you so much for telling us about this. I'm sure people will be very excited and will get in touch.
Brilliant.
Do leave your comments in the box down below for all my lovely viewers. And there'll be more interviews coming up very soon. I think this is quite explosive, actually. So I think people are going to be sort of going, blimey, did you know that? Did you know that? It's very empowering, and it's a brilliant positive message to be sending out, particularly over the Easter weekend. So Dolores, happy Easter to you.
Happy Easter. Thank you, Richard, and thank you to all your viewers and everyone who has supported me over the last few years. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching. I'll be back again with more interviews over the next few days. Until then, from me and Dolores, goodbye.